Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're taking a look here at the high-grade Build Divers Re-Rise Eldora Brute. So once again, this is just a variant of the previously released HG Death Army kit. This is sort of, actually more to the point, a variant of the Death Beast, or the four-legged version of the Death Army. And so hopefully we'll get that original kit out sometime later on. It's very likely, I would say, but whether it's going to be P-Banded or not, we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, this new version is pretty interesting. Definitely an interesting take on that. I like the color scheme of it, although some people might find that maybe a little bit boring, just being sort of basically all gray. But it's once again the case here in the Build Divers line that we're getting a kit that's just kind of fresh and unique and interesting. We had like the Earth 3 and the V2, that whole thing is very unique. The Seltsam also had very unique concepts with that build, and this one as well with the four-legged thing. While it's not totally original, it's one of the very few times we've actually had this in an actual kit form, as we don't actually have the original kit that this is based off of out yet. And ultimately, while there are a few pros and cons, I would actually say that this is probably a better kit overall than the original just regular standard Death Army kit, though. So we'll get into all of that and go through the accessories and everything here in just a moment. As always, guys, though, just a big thank you to USA Gundam Store for their support. If you guys want to check out the link to USA Gundam Store, it's down below. You can check out everything there on the site and save 10% off everything using the coupon code there, ZakuAurelius10, so check that out. Now, as for the accessories with the kit here, this is it. This is the one only official accessory here for this kit. This is its main weapon, the Tetradent. It does have a cool foil sticker in there. I guess it's supposed to be for shooting beams out there, but as you can see, it's just this big giant four-pronged axe here basically at the end of that. So yes, it's just a couple parts, doesn't really do anything else, it's just that's what it is, and that is really all we have for the accessories. Just hold that in the hand, and that is pretty much it. That said, we do have some leftover parts from the original kit, namely the original rifle here, which was included with the original kit, of course. So you have this in full, it's only 3 parts, so you have all the parts for that, and you also have the holding hand for that. So if you want to hold it as the actual spiked club form, you have the hand for holding that. So that's a pretty useful accessory. You have some other just different leftover parts, like if you have the original spiked cuff part there for around the side of the form. If you preferred that, you could use that instead. And also, if you prefer the original head, you have just the original head part there, the top of the head, without the part there at the front, and obviously different spike there on the top of the head. So if you were building like a couple of these or something, you wanted to build it into like a team of them or something, you wanted to have one as like a commander and the other ones as non-commander units, you could use maybe like the original head or something like that if you wanted to. And then the majority of the other leftover parts are for making the legs. Now, the folded up legs here, which now make up the backpack, for the original Death Army kit are folded down to, just as the regular legs. So you could make most of the legs if you wanted to have this as just like a Death Army kit, just in this darker color scheme and a little different parts there. You can't make the legs in full, though. You are missing a couple of parts to make the original feet from the Death Army, so you wouldn't be able to make it totally with this kit, unfortunately. But since that's it for the accessories, let's just take a look at some of the articulation here while we're here. Now, as for stickers, though, we have the one on the Tetradent, and we have the ones here for the cannons above the shoulders, so those are pretty well effective for being gigantic stickers on there. And then basically it's just these little purple ones here on the front of the chest for the eye, of course, and then the 2 little purple ones on the top of the head there and there. And just like with the original kit, if you remove the top of the head here and pop out this piece there for the mono eye, if you turn that around to the other side, you have the different version of the mono eye there on the other side, so you can pick and choose between the 2 of those. And whichever form you do ultimately choose, once you have the head back together, you can also move the mono eye side to side a little bit. It has this track underneath, you can just kind of push that a little bit off to the side for having that looking off to the side like that. So it looks pretty well. And speaking of the fin on the top of the head, I do like the shape of the fin on the top of this. Pretty cool, interesting shape for that. So ultimately the head will go up to about there, which is not too bad. It's actually pretty good. And then down to there. I also like the new color piece, this very high color piece around the side of the head. Also pretty cool look for that. In its sort of stomach section here, this will move forward and back like that, and then a little bit side to side a little bit as well. You can also rotate a little bit there also, so you have some nice movement. And the cool thing is that like the backpack here, or what is the folded up legs, the backpack as it were, is actually plugged into this part here which holds all the legs together down below the waist actually, so the whole top half of the body here moves freely without actually moving the backpack at all. It's just stuck there, and you can move the whole upper body without having to adjust that. As for the shoulders, they still will move forward and back like that. They have the part in there which will swing to the front. It's not a polycap, but it works the same way as the typical kind of polycap we see for swinging shoulder joints. We do still unfortunately have this seam line there on the top of the shoulder part there, and the shoulder parts here, which is just kind of changed from the original kit being just black circles, or there was like dark brown circles, or changed to spikes here on the shoulders, with is a pretty fitting look for this kit. So we've gotten rid of the spikes on the forearm, and we've got new spikes up here on the shoulders, so it's a pretty cool look. Might actually kind of be interesting to mix and match, put the spiked and spiked on one kit and then the unspiked and unspiked on the other kit. Also, the thing to mention about the spikes here is that that's actually two pieces sandwiched, so you will have seam lines on each one of those spikes sticking out from the shoulders, which is pretty unfortunate. And speaking of this piece here on the forearm, that also does have a seam line on that as well. This will move up and down. You also have a new spike here on the back of the elbow. That's a new piece added on there. The elbow will move as it did before, just 90 degrees like that, which is not really all that great. The wrist is just on a ball joint, but it actually does have a hinge in the wrist there as well for moving in and out like that. And then the upward movement of the arm is going to be up to there, about 90 degrees to the body, so that is pretty limited. And then one more note on the seam lines on the forearm part, the lighter gray part of the forearm, there's also a seam line on the inside and outside of that forearm there as well. Now going down here to the skirt sections, these will move up and down like that, and the side skirts move up and down like that. I'm going to separate the top and bottom half of this kit actually just to show you this, because you have the whole, like, it's the waist section of the original kit with like the pegs for holding the legs and everything, and the back skirt here is there as well. And that just basically is connected to this part. This is the lower half where you have the four legs connected onto there obviously, and then the back pass connected onto there with this part, which you could actually remove from that. It's easy enough to just pull that part out of there. This is the part for holding on the backpack, just plugs down into there. But so as you can see, you'll just take the original hip section there, and it just slots down into this section for holding the four new legs. Before we take a look at the legs, we'll just take a look back here at the backpack. Now, as I said, it's just kind of fixed into place. You can actually move these a little bit forward and back like that, but they're not really going to be all that much. It's not really much to write home about there. With those, they're just kind of meant to be stuck up there like that. So for the legs, you have one bend there at the top like that, which I guess would be sort of like, we'll call that knee bend 1, and then knee bend 2 down here is another nice joint for a much more fuller bend like that. So you can actually get a really full bend, but the problem is just going to be running into the other leg. Now the problem I also have with these is that there's no rotation. You can't rotate the legs at all, so you can't turn anything at all like that, so you can't really adjust the pose really all that much, unfortunately. Now, that said, on the good side of the legs here, we only have one seam line, and it's on the inside of the lower leg. There you have a seam line there, but otherwise that is it for those. As for the ankles, each of these will move side to side like that. You have full detail underneath and no hollow spaces there, so that's good as well. These will move forward and back a little bit like that. So we will be able to do, I think, some posing with this, but I think there one or two more points of articulation, especially up around here at the hip section, would have been nice, but it's just a very simple connection piece for these all to be plugged in there at the center. So hopefully, maybe if we were to ever get a master grade Death Army kit or something, then it would actually have a point there at the connection which would enable the leg to swing side to side, and then also a point for the leg to rotate here as well would be nice. And for a quick side-by-side comparison, here it is with the original Death Army kit, and as you can see, definitely some big noticeable differences in this kit. I mean, obviously with the Eldora Brute, we've got pretty much the full kit there is still there with pretty minor changes around on the body of it, but it still makes for a very different look once it's all said and done. Now, one thing that I am already noticing, unfortunately, with the posing of this is just holding onto the tetradent. There's a couple problems there. The first problem is that the wrist of this kit is a little bit weak. You have to make sure the wrist is pushed in all the way firmly into the forearm so that you're getting a good, strong wrist connection there. Otherwise, the weight of the tetradent is just going to weight that down. It's going to be kind of hard to hold up in any upward position there with the hand. The other problem is that it's just a straight shaft. There's no indentation or anything for where you're supposed to plug the hand onto that. Now, it's a kind of a plus and minus thing. Sometimes when you have weapons like that where there's specific points where you have to grab onto the handle of that very long staff, then I kind of find that a little bit limiting. Like if you wanted to hold it on in somewhere else that's not a specific point. But that said, then you have the other problem where without that, it's just the straight shaft in the hand where it doesn't have any specific gripping point on that, so it can like unintentionally rotate or slide in there just if it starts to get loose. Now, as it is holding onto it relatively tightly, but if you were going to be changing the pose with this a lot and just over time, I could see that could definitely get a little bit loose. And if you're wanting to maintain a strong grip on that, then it probably would be a good idea to just go ahead and glue that onto the hand or something like that if that's how you're going to have it permanently posed. But one more thing I want to point out before we wrap up the review, if we go back here and just remove this part for the backpack, this does have the 2-prong adapter point there for just kind of the standard backpack adapter. So if we take like this, for example, the backpack parts from the recent released Stealth Sum Gundam, for example, which you will be able to get as a separate set here in the very near future, you could attach those onto the back for something like that to give it some more weapons or a different look. And this is just an example. Of course, you could attach any number of different backpacks onto there. So that's a pretty cool option if you wanted to get a couple of these, maybe change up the backpack, use something else instead of just the folded up legs and the cannons there on its back instead. So could make some pretty cool options. But so I will make one other just kind of small complaint about this, and that is just if you want to do aerial posing with this, just the way that the legs are designed, again, just going back to the lack of just a couple, maybe 1 or 2 more points of articulation would have helped a lot, but because you don't have those in there, that just doing any sort of aerial poses with this up on a stand, you're gonna have a hard time getting the legs to look any sort of proper way, so that it just doesn't look kind of weird. So it's definitely gonna be one of those kits that looks better just keeping it on the ground. It's got 4 legs, just keep them on the ground, and that's probably gonna be for the best. It's just kind of awkward to get the legs posed in a certain way that looks quite right, but I'm doing my best with it and still having a little bit of trouble. So otherwise the kit, I mean, it's a pretty cool kit. I definitely, like I said, prefer this over the original Death Army kit. As much as I like G Gundam and I like the design of the Death Army in general, the kit was just a little bit boring and kind of underwhelming. I guess being a very simplistic grunt, of course, that may tend to happen, but this one being obviously a much more customized and interesting design, of course, is going to make for a more interesting model kit. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this one more, despite just a couple small flaws and a handful of seam lines there. It's still a pretty cool kit, so definitely recommend it if you guys are a fan of its design. And once again, another step in the HD Build Divers Re-Rise line of kits that's pretty good. So far, nothing in the line has really blown me away. I mean, I really like the gimmicks of the Earth 3 Gundam, but that said, the line has been pretty solid for giving us pretty interesting and pretty good kits without anything that's really that noteworthy of being anything really to cause me to not recommend anyone to pick up any of the models from the line so far, of the ones that I've reviewed so far anyway. But as always, guys, I'm interested to hear your thoughts about the kit, so let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If you have questions, of course, you can leave those there as well. And once again, thank you to USA Gundam Store for their support. Thank you to all of you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one. Bye, guys.